What is up, YouTube headphones and stuff? Coming at you with another video. This one being a little different from my usual topics of what I do. Today I'm going to be doing a video on my Stephen King book collection. As of the moment, I currently have, I believe, 27 Stephen King books. I've only read about 5 of them, but recently I have gotten a lot. So I decided I'd do a video because I know what most of the books are about, and I can give you a general synopsis of what they're about. So yeah, I'm going to start off right away with the book that I'm currently reading and just started the other day, Stephen King, Dr. Sleep. This book is basically the sequel to The Shining. It describes Danny Torrance, which is the little kid from The Shining's life once he's older. I think he's like in his 30s in most of the book. The book starts off with him when he's younger, when he's 8 years old, I think, after the incident with his father. And then after a couple pages, it goes into once he's older. So yeah, so far it's a pretty good book. Next book I will do is Four Past Midnight. I haven't read this book, but I believe it's just a whole bunch of short stories. And I don't really like this paperback, because of the whole thing, how it's basically just advertising the movie on it. I like a book to have like its own individual thing for it. But yeah, I believe this is a whole bunch of short stories, or it might actually be one story. I'm not exactly sure. But yep, pretty big book. It's 750 or so pages long. Yep, next book. One of his newer books. I believe this is his second newest book, Joyland. Pretty short book with generally large font for Stephen King. About 300 pages. About a carnival, I believe. So yeah, kind of interesting. Different from what he usually writes about, kind of. Next, the newest Anchor Books copy of Nightshift. I read about half of this book. Most of it's just short stories. Most of them which I read were just okay. I've definitely heard better stories from Stephen King, but there is a few classics in there, like Boogeyman, I believe's in here, as well as Children of the Corn. So yeah, I would say it's worth buying just to read it, but it's definitely not his best. And my current favorite from what I've read from him, I just finished reading this about a week ago, The Shining. And if you're wondering, this is not, well, technically I believe it is a first edition copy, but is the book club edition, so it's worth a lot less. The first editions themselves can sell for just like $1,000 on eBay, and these go for like anywhere from 10 to 30 bucks. I don't know what the significant difference is from the book club edition to the regular, but they're basically the same thing. They were published in the same year. So yeah, but one thing about the old hardcovers and even the new hardcovers, you have to be very careful. As you can see right there, the binding's already coming undone and it's ripping on both sides. But yeah, still a great book. Definitely recommend reading it. And if you're going to read Dr. Sleep, I would recommend reading The Shining first, since it is overall the sequel. Next book, Went Through the Keyhole. This is the UK edition, I believe. I have not read any of the Dark Tower series yet. I may or may not read it. I'm not a big fan of reading series. I like individual stories and books themselves. But yeah, pretty cool book. None of the Dark Towers are too big, but there is a lot of them. So yeah, pretty cool hardcover. Yep. Next book. This one's a pretty lengthy one. Not too lengthy, but pretty lengthy. This one is somewhere around 500 pages. Lizzies Story. I'm not quite sure exactly. I believe this is a first edition from when they came out. And I believe this one is about a wife whose husband dies, and she like goes somewhere to like visit demons and stuff. That's basically what the back of the book says of what it is. I'm not exactly sure what the whole entire story is about, but it's basically about what I just said. So yeah, pretty cool book. One thing I thought was cool about this was that, unlike most of Stephen King's book, the hardcover book itself actually has some kind of like print on it. Usually they're just plain with the binding, or the side of it has the name of the book and Stephen King on it. So yeah, that's a pretty cool one. I think this is probably his third newest, I want to say. Or maybe, I don't know. It was written in 2011, I believe. And it is 11/22/63. This is a pretty big book. He's definitely had bigger books like It or Insomnia or The Stand. But yeah, this is about 700 pages. And this one is about, I believe, a school teacher who travels back in time to change the past. And part of it has to do with JFK's assassination. So yeah, pretty cool. I believe this is also the first edition that they made of it. Next. Salem's Lot, illustrated edition. I don't think... it's the illustrated edition, and it also has some extra stuff that was edited out of there for, like, the just the story itself. But, yeah, hardcover, pretty cool. Has all these illustrations in it throughout, if you can see where the dark pages are, yeah. So, yeah, that one's about... I've never read it. It's about... I'm probably going to read it soon, but it's about a vampire, and they have made a movie of almost probably every Stephen King book they've made, and they have one out of that. Next book, it's another Dark Tower book, Wolves of the Kala. I have no idea what this is about. It has some good length to it, not too big though, about 700 pages. And I believe this is from 2003 or somewhere back there. And this is a first edition as well. Next, I have read this one, and it is absolutely a great, awesome, gruesome story. One of his shorter ones. I definitely recommend it if you're just getting started on Stephen King. It is Misery. They have made a movie out of this. It's about a author who gets in a car accident and is rescued by this psycho lady who forces him to write another book and tortures him at the same time. So, yep, that one's a pretty cool one, but that's just a paperback, not a first edition. Next book. I read this one. Definitely not one of my favorites. It's him writing as Richard Bachman. Most of the Bachman books are pretty good from what I've read. But this one was a little... Even though it's about a lawyer who gets cursed and keeps getting thinner, chasing a whole bunch of gypsies across the country. Even though it's kind of a fast-moving book, the storyline just didn't... I didn't catch on to it. I didn't, like, snap, and it took me a while to read it, even though it's not that big of a book. So yeah, it's just an okay book, but some people think it's great. It's all on your opinion. Next, The Running Man. I read this very fast-paced book, action-packed, not really scary, but definitely a good book. It's also one of the Bachman books. And one Bachman book that I'm dying to get, I hope I can pick it up one day, is Rage. But I want the actual book, not just in the Bachman collection. So yeah, this is a great book. They made a movie out of this with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Another one. This one was published in 2007, I believe. It is a Richard Bachman story, but it was published way later than all the other ones. This is Blaze. And basically, in the beginning of the book, he says that after rereading it, writing it, he thought it was kind of a crappy book, but then after years of not looking at it, he found it again and thought it was worth publishing, so he published it. I haven't read it, but I read the beginning intro part. Next book. Let me go get them because they're on a shelf that's a little far away from the camera. Okay, this one. Stephen King, The Colorado Kid. I think this is just mostly about a murder story or something. Kind of a mystery book, I believe. Very short for Stephen King. Only about 180 pages. But I've heard it's alright. So yeah, there's that one. Let me get to the next book. Next book is The Mist. I believe originally The Mist was part of a short story collection of his, but they remade it into a whole book itself since the movie was so popular. And if you've heard of The Mist, you already know what it's about. I believe it's about a town that mist comes in, and then like an octopus monster or something of that matter like takes over. So yep, there's The Mist. And here I have another copy of Nightshift, but this one is actually pretty cool because it is the first printing of Nightshift from Signet. So it is practically a first edition from this publisher, and it's pretty cool because it is a layered cover with the holes in it, and then like the original cover. And if you tilt it up, all the eyeballs match. I thought that was sorry, my camera just ran out of memory. But yep, as I was saying, that was that book. Let me get to the next. This book, Everything's Eventual. I believe this is short stories. Yes, 14 Dark Tales. I wish I had the hardcover of this because it's a pretty cool hardcover book. But it's still cool to have the book itself. It is a paperback, and it is about 600 pages. Kind of lengthy, but for Stephen King, I've seen longer. So yeah, I've heard it's a pretty good book. Some of the short stories I've heard aren't that good, but most of them are pretty good. Next book. From a Buick 8. I've heard this is a pretty good book. I believe it's one of his older works. I'm not sure. Let me check out the copyright date. Oh, and also this is like the double layer cover too. The copyright date, oh, it's 2002, so it's a little old, but not that old for Stephen King since he's been writing for a while. And I think basically it's kind of the same storyline as Christine, but it involves a motorcycle, I think. Possibly, I'm not completely sure. Actually, no, I think it's about a car. But it's kind of the same as Christine, and it takes place in Pennsylvania, where I'm located. So yeah, sounds like a pretty cool one. I've heard it's pretty good. Next book. Different Seasons. This is another one that I don't like, because it like features the part. Well, actually, I don't know if this is... I believe it's different seasons featuring APT pupil or apt pupil. I'm not exactly sure. It's kind of confusing. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's just a whole bunch of short stories. Heard that one's pretty good, but I don't like how it kind of advertises the motion picture thing. Next book. Bag of Bones. I don't know when I'm gonna read this book, because it is more of a ghost love story from what I've heard, and it was made into a movie, but I heard the movie was pretty good. Pretty lengthy, around 730 pages. Not a hardcover. Yep, so that's that. Let me get to my next one. I have another copy of Lizzies Story. I kind of like to have two, just to say that you have two. One you can keep nicer than the other. So yeah, so basically, same story as this book, but different copy or edition. Next book. sell. I'm probably going to read this one pretty soon. The basic story, I believe, is a apocalypse starts from a cell phone. So, and I heard it's pretty action-packed, but some people say, I've heard on reviews, that it's not quite the same writing as his old stuff, just because it is a newer book and it involves cell phones and all that stuff. Some people prefer the older writing, but I did hear it was pretty action-packed. And again, this is another double layer cover. So yep, pretty cool book. Let me get to the rest of the books in my collection. Here are the rest of the books, and these are all just the Dark Tower series books. Let me go through them. There's the Wastelands, the Dark Tower, Wolves of the Kala, which I have the hardcover first copy edition, the Gunslinger, shorter one, the Drawing of Three, and Wizard and Glass. I think I have all of the Dark Towers. I'm not exactly sure. I don't really know that much about what they're about, but I've heard it's a pretty good series. So yeah, that is all I have as far as Stephen King books go at the moment. I am sure in the future I will get some more, but for now that is what I have, and I probably have enough to read to last me for a pretty long while. I just wanted to show you this. I have Joe Hill, which is his son, I'm pretty sure, heart-shaped box, and I think he has 3 novels, Joe Hill, and I heard this is actually a pretty good book as well. So yep, if you liked the video, make sure to like it. If you didn't like it, you can dislike it. But yep, if you liked it, like it, and subscribe, and thanks for watching. I don't usually do videos on books, but I decided I'd do it since I have so many, and I do like reading Stephen King books. He's my favorite author by far. And just in case you're wondering, from the Shining book to the movie, the book is a lot better than the movie. The movie was basically just Stanley Kubrick's adaptation of the book, and there's a lot more going on in the book, The Shining, than there is in the movie The Shining. If you want to really see a movie that is like The Shining, you have to watch the 4-part miniseries that he made. That does the book a lot more justice. So yeah, see ya.